Welcome everybody to the annual Brookline Senior Center and BrooklineCAN Town Election Forum. We're really glad you can join us. Some folks may still trickle in, which is great. And thank you to all of the candidates who are here with us to share some of their time and some of their perspectives. Thank you as always to BrooklineCAN, in particular Matt Weiss, who's our timekeeper, and Carol Caro, who helped me plan this. Thanks to Ruth Dobek, the director of the COA and co-chair of BrooklineCAN. And a big thank you to the Brookline Interactive Group, BIG, which always is so key in putting this stuff on, and in particular, who is just totally integral. We have the great closed captioning, which you can watch at the bottom of your screen, which can be really helpful and which is really quite accurate, which is great. So we're going to kick off. We're just going to have a quick introduction to BrooklineCAN, the organization, from Matt, and then we will jump in to hearing from the candidates. We'll hear from the two school committee candidates from the contested race. Then we'll hear from the town moderator candidates, and finally from the select board candidates. So Matt, take it away.
Thanks, Michael. BrooklineCAN and Senior Center and the Senior Center produced this program with the assistance, the talented assistance of Ann Tice of Brookline Interactive Group, as Michael mentioned, and I want to thank them. BrooklineCAN is a membership organization that works only for older Brookline residents, or essentially for, although it accomplishes a lot of things for all of Brookline. Its purpose is to keep older adults a vital part of the Brookline social, cultural, and civic life. We work with town departments, businesses, and other organizations to accomplish this. And one of the key committees I'd like to mention is the LCAC, the Livable Community Advocacy Committee. It calls attention to what Brookline offers, but it also advocates for improvements. I'd like to ask you all to explore our website. You'll see a lot more about, not only about BrooklineCAN, but you'll also see things constantly changing. Current events, book information, Netflix information, all sorts of things on the website that you'll find pretty exciting, I think. In addition, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And most of all, I'd like you all to consider joining our organization and joining the network of older adults. And for now, let's go on with the program. Thanks, Michael.
Well, thank you, Matt. And so Matt's going to be our timekeeper. His background will display the amount of time you have to speak. We're going to start off hearing from the two candidates for the contested school committee seat. This is going to be a 3-minute introductory statement from each of you. We're not going to have any questions. We're going to move right on to the town moderator portion afterwards. And Stephen, we will go ahead and start with you.
Thanks very much. My name is Stephen Ehrenberg, and I'm a father of 2 girls at Lawrence School, one of whom has special needs, and I'm running for the 1-year seat on our school committee. I think we need a school committee with broad education experience and expertise. I am the candidate, and I am that candidate in this race. I'm a lifelong education professional. I've worked for the past 15 years designing and directing education programs for global nonprofits. I've led primary and teacher education programs in Rwanda, higher education programs in Afghanistan, and access to education programs in Myanmar, among others. I have a doctorate in international education from Columbia University with a focus on policy. As a result of my knowledge and my experience, I know and can quickly identify good practices in a broad range of education areas. This is important because for this 1-year seat, the school committee has to work with a superintendent on 2 key challenges. First, how do we help Brookline's children recover from a year of social, emotional, and academic losses? And second, how do we return to the work of building an excellent, equitable, and inclusive education so that all of our graduates are ready to make their way in the world? I already volunteer for our education system. I served on our Education Equity PAC to provide recommendations for improving racial equity, and on expert panel number 3 to support teachers' use of technology throughout the pandemic. I've designed programs budgeted at $100 million and managed budgets in the tens of millions of dollars. So my learning curve as a school committee member will not be steep. I'm very proud to say that I've been endorsed by the chair and vice chair of the school committee, Suzanne Federspiel and David Perlman, as well as committee members Mariah Nabrega and Jennifer Monopoly. These are the school committee members who were elected over the past 5 years to shake up how public education in Brookline is run. We hold each other in mutual respect, and I want to join them in their work. I'm running for a 1-year seat, so I need to hit the ground running. I think we need a vision for education in Brookline that aligns with our values, and we need a strategy to realize that vision. In my work, I've brought together disparate factions around the world to create lasting educational change. I am a consensus builder, I am a pragmatist, and now I want to bring that expertise for creating educational change to Brookline. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen. And now we hear from Valerie.
I'm Valerie France. I'm the other candidate for the 1-year school committee seat. I'm a proud Driscoll mom of 2 fifth-grade boys. I'm a civil rights leader, a nonprofit activist, and community engaged. I'm the past co-chair of Driscoll PTO. I'm a current board member of Brookline CPAC, which is a special education PAC. And I also finished service just recently on the Driscoll Principal Search Committee. I've advised Brookline and other school districts around the Commonwealth on policy and legal matters related to special education and equity and inclusion issues. I've spent my entire career fighting for others as a courageous progressive leader with years of experience working to build consensus. I can help the public schools of Brookline recover from the difficult months of the pandemic, as well as the challenges that came before and will come after. I value excuse me, I have the shared values and practical skills and lived experience to work with others in this community, to manage a budget, to develop a budget, and collaborate with teachers, parents, administrators, and district leaders. I currently run Ethos, which is a nonprofit that provides programs and services for our elders so that they can age in place. That organization has over a $50 million budget. In this past year during the pandemic, we created programs, intergenerational programs to promote less social isolation between our elders and our young people. And that program was a great success and one that I think can be replicated in the district. I'm going to prioritize 5 key issues: protecting our school budgets during the pandemic, centering voices of inclusion and safety of all PSB students, especially those who identify as AAPI, people of color, and LGBTQ students. I'll expand student mental health services, particularly during the pandemic and as we come out of the pandemic. I will ensure that special ed services that support every student are fully funded. I'm the mom of 2 students with IEPs, and that's very personal to me. And I'll work with students to confront the climate crisis in classrooms, buildings, and plannings. I've been endorsed by the Attorney General, Maura Healey, State Representative Nika Elogardu, Select Board Member Raul Fernandez, our Women of the Year, Chi-Chi Wu and Deborah Brown, among many other Brookline leaders. Current and former school committee members, select board members. You can visit my website, valfrias.com, for a complete list. And I look forward to earning your vote on May 4th or before. Thank you.
Well, thank you both for introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about your candidacies. I'm sure that's really helpful to everyone in attendance. And we're going to now move on to the town moderator portion of the event. Yep, farewell. Each of the town moderators are going to also have 3 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we're going to have some questions so that everybody knows. Questions have been solicited publicly ahead of time. I got lots of question submissions. I've taken the questions we got, I've distilled them down by topic. So you're going to hear some of the topics brought up that I heard from the general population. And so to introduce themselves, we will start with Kate.
Hi, it's so nice not to go alphabetically for once. So I'm Kate Popperman. I am a 28-year resident of Brookline. I raised my 2 girls here and live with my husband, Rafael Bueno. I'm trained as an attorney. I have practiced various types of complex laws in my career. securities laws, and most recently zoning laws. I've been on the Zoning Board of Appeals for 5 years. That has given me invaluable experience in moderating meetings and getting people who are not necessarily happy about what's going on, who might be dealing with a controversial subject in zoning, which, as you know, is very controversial and a big issue in Brookline. And people have a lot to say, and it's important to let them have their say. It's important to let them know that they have been heard. However, you can't always come to a decision that everyone likes. So as a lawyer, I'm used to following the law. If you have to make an unpopular decision, that's what you have to do. The same sometimes happens in town meeting, although you're dealing with about 250 people with strong opinions who live in Brookline rather than a smaller group. But it's really the same thing in terms of making sure that a group feels heard, making sure that the people who are there participating feel respected, and keeping a tenor of dignity, respect, and hopefully congeniality among a group. One of the other jobs of the moderator, in addition to managing these big meetings twice a year, is to appoint advisory committee members. It's important to get a very diverse group. And I'm glad to be speaking to you because a lot of people say to the moderator and have said to me, the advisory committee skews conservative. It skews older citizens. And partly that's because older citizens have the time to devote, and it's a lot of time. But older citizens, as you know, are not a homogeneous group. There is so much diversity in there that is not appreciated by people in Brookline when they say, oh, the advisory committee is made up of seniors or mostly seniors. I think it's very important to reach out to the different types of seniors we have in Brookline. I appreciate how many seniors we have, what proportion. Some have food insecurity. Some have difficulty with living situations. These are the type of things that Brookline needs to recognize when it is determining diversity in its appointments. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Kate. And now over to Scott.
Thank you. I'm Scott Ananian. My wife Jessica and I live between Coolidge Corner that way and Washington Square over there. We've got 2 young children. I love this town, and I've thrown myself into our collective projects to help lead it and improve it day by day, including serving as town meeting member for the last 6 years. On May 4th, I'm hoping that you fill in the bubble next to my name and give me the honor of stepping up once more to serve our town, this time as town moderator. Brookline residents volunteer countless hours to serve the town on boards, committees, and town meeting, and I'm endlessly inspired by the expertise and dedication I find among my neighbors. But I've also seen how even the most passionate volunteer, plenty of free time when greeted with harsh words or opaque rules or someone who tells them that they can't do that way, may choose instead to direct their energy elsewhere where it is more appreciated. Having worked for decades on large collaborative volunteer projects, including One Laptop Per Child, a large educational project, and currently I work for the foundation behind Wikipedia. I've got the skills I believe that are needed to make Brookline's collaborative process work better, to ensure that all voices are heard and are appreciated. I will make town meeting kind, welcoming, and accessible for all. This is our government, built by us and for us. It should multiply all of our talents, embrace all of our diversity, young and old, rich and poor, not erect barriers to entry. But simply opening the doors is not enough. The burden shouldn't be on the underrepresented, disadvantaged, or disabled to climb the mountain of town process. If you make it expensive to contribute, you only get contributions from those who can afford to do so. So I'm going to go out into the community, to senior centers, to affordable housing, to demystify town meeting and empower residents to use it. I'll host regular listening sessions where I will listen to folks' dreams for the town and help them frame them to fit our town process. Recruit seniors to committee, recruit tech support volunteers to help seniors get comfortable with a lot of the new technologies that are coming up and being used in our town government. Remote ask the moderator sessions, so you don't have to go a far way across town just to get your questions about town government answered. I have assembled a team who's going to help me overhaul the town meeting website, making our town process and documents indexable, searchable, responsive, and comprehensible, we can do a lot better, and we can do it in a way which improves accommodations for those who need large print, hearing assistance, or who have mobility issues. It shouldn't be confusing or hard to find the information you're looking for. Every step in the journey of a resident's idea through the town meeting warrant, public hearings, debate, and eventual implementation should be clear and transparent. When there's change that you want to see in Brookline, you should think, I can do that, right? I've already started a series on the Brookline Interactive Group with my friend Deborah Brown called Town Meeting Talk, where we discuss how town meeting works, how to navigate it, what to expect if you file a warrant article of your own. You can find the links on my website, scottforbrookline.org. So I brought 18 or 19 warrant articles or motions through town meeting myself, and I've helped dozens of other
thanks,
people.
Scott. You're up on time,
okay,
so
thanks.
You can get into it when you're up next.
Happy to,
and
thanks.
Thank you both for the introductions, and both of you started to touch on this in how you framed up your candidacies. But one of the great things about having a town moderator race is this is such an important position, and I don't think that the general understanding of what the role is necessarily that strong. So I'd like to hear from each of you. What does the town moderator do? What is this role in your perspective? And Scott, we will start with you.
Sure. So my young son asked me the other day what a leader was in a different context. I was a leader of a team, and he asked me if it meant that I got to tell everybody what to do, right? And that's not what this role is at all. That as I explained it to him in that context, the leader's job is to arrange the process so that we can all together make decisions about what to do. And that's the town moderator's role as well, to organize town meeting so that we all know what our roles are, so that we're all working together. And at the end of the day, we feel confident that the process was fair, that it was complete, that everyone had their fair say, and the process worked like it was supposed to.
All right, thanks, Scott. And Kate, how would you describe the role of town moderator? You're muted, Kate, sorry.
The job has two main components. The first is to run town meeting, and I think I've gone into that a little bit, which has been in Brookline for 300 years, and it's sort of the greatest expression of democracy that we have in the US, because everybody gets to vote through the representative. So it is bringing people to discuss the bylaws that are being proposed, the warrant articles that Scott referred to, which residents can bring to change bylaws, to help them understand if there are any issues that come up in the bylaws. With my legal knowledge, I can spot something and say, look, you need to consult with town council because there's XYZ problem with this. The other main portion of it is to, as I said, appoint advisory committee members. The advisory committee is effectively the financial arm of Brookline and gives advice to town meeting and town meeting members based on the expertise that they have and division of experience, whether that's financial and planning, zoning, experiential, as I referred to before. The idea is to get good advisors for the town, and it is up to the town moderator to make sure we have the best. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kate. And you're leading right into our next question, and you're going to be up first. And the next question is that one of the key responsibilities of the town moderator is these appointments to the advisory committee and other committees, but the advisory committee obviously is the big one. And so what criteria are you going to have in mind as you think about making these appointments? And Kate, you first.
Okay, well, the most important ones are these skills and talents and knowledge that the advisory committee member can contribute to the advisory committee. A knowledge of municipal financing is obviously extremely important when you're analyzing the town's budget. A knowledge of zoning and planning is helpful when you are looking at changes in bylaws relating to land use. But you also want diversity. As I mentioned before, you want socioeconomic diversity, you want ethnic diversity, and you want sort of experiential and demographic diversity, which is what I was talking about with seniors. So one of the things I want to do to get this diversity is to reach out proactively to organizations through BrooklineCAN, through the Brookline Housing Association, through the parent-teacher organizations, to get people to apply for advisory committee positions, because most people don't even know it exists, let alone apply for the positions. And I think that way, I'm working through a panel of advisors who help interview. We can get the best possible appointments to the advisory committee and advise Brookline in the best way.
Thanks, Kate. Over to you, Scott.
Sure. I think it's important to have the right voices in the room, which is not to say that everyone is going to win or lose at the end of the day, but that everyone feels heard. So folks shouldn't feel that the needs of seniors were not addressed at all, or that the needs of low-income folks or renters. So that's one of the challenges, is to make sure that folks with a diversity of perspectives are there. And also, one of the changes that I plan to make is being very transparent with each individual who's on the committee should have a description of what skill set they're bringing, so that folks know when they approach one of these committees who has the expertise that can help them, and why they were, when we're filling an opening for a committee, what sorts of skills we're trying to replace. I'm also looking for folks who will bring a collaborative process, as I mentioned. That's my professional area of expertise. Folks who can work together instead of adversarially, so that the end result, it benefits from both the petitioner's expertise and the advisory committee's expertise, and to look to find more ways to contribute. Folks who to the advisory committee can be a huge time sink. And a lot of you, hopefully listening at home, have expertise in areas which can benefit the town. We need to find ways for you to contribute that expertise without necessarily devoting the amount of time that the full advisory spends reviewing every single warrant on the article in some committees and in full advisory.
All right, thank you both. So third question, the town moderator, as you both mentioned, is responsible for moderating town meeting. And so how would you, as sort of MC of Brookline's democracy, approach that job when it comes to issues or procedural or topical about which you personally have quite strong opinions? And Scott, we'll kick it to you first.
Sure. I think we've all had this discussion over the past year or so in the national media, that having strong opinions is not related to being fair or impartial, right? And in fact, you build trust by being fair and impartial when you are known to have strong opinions about things. And that's the sort of leader that I plan to be. It's a distinction I'm comfortable with in my professional life, where as a software developer, there are features that I write which may or may not be safe to deploy. They have bugs as everything else, and you have to take the step back and be able to see the whole process impartially, and that's what the town moderator's role is. So transparency is the antidote here. Folks can trust and believe that I'm being impartial, because everything that I do as a moderator will be transparent and open. I will document every decision that's made, every area that there is a possibility of swinging the decision one way or the other, and people can see for themselves that I'm acting with the utmost integrity in making decisions that are fair for our town.
Thanks, Scott. Over to you, Kate.
Hi. This is actually a critical question, and it's one of the ways that Scott and I are so different. Obviously, the moderator has to be objective, has to be able to let both sides easily have the floor. Scott has been very active as an advocate and has put forth some, I think he's 18 warrant articles. The moderator is not an advocate. The moderator is an arbiter, an umpire between the various opinions. And I think it is critical to make that distinction. Scott's advocacy is very admirable, but it is not the job of a moderator. The job of the moderator is to make sure everyone has an equal voice, to go out and seek the new members of town meeting, those who haven't had a chance to speak, and say, if you would like to speak and you haven't done it before, maybe I'll let them jump the line of, first one to let the moderator know that they want to speak in order to get a broader range of voices. And I think that's another way of being objective and making sure that town meeting is conducted fairly with as many voices heard as possible.
All right. So one more question. And so as I'm sure folks who have been active participants in town politics know, the outgoing moderator, like any moderator, has received some praise and ample criticism. So, no matter how the two of you approach this job, no matter how well whoever becomes moderator navigates the role, there's going to be a lot of people who are very critical of the choices that you make. And so how are you going to handle robust criticism of your work as town moderator? And going to you first, Kate.
So I have the perfect experience having been on the Zoning Board of Appeals. People get furious with you, and you develop a thick skin. If you reacted to every criticism that was made, you would not be able to do your job. Controversial things come before the zoning board. That gives me the ability to let things bounce off me, to have a wall, and then just continue to conduct the meeting. Let the people have their say, let them know the basis for your judgment that may be unpopular. And that sometimes helps things calm down. We definitely need to get things more calm in town meeting because everyone has just been sort of polarized and politicized. And I think that that can be helped by having a gentler approach to the moderator. I have great respect for Sandy, but I think that, as Scott has said, making sure that everybody feels respected, that everybody feels heard, and treated with dignity. Hopefully you won't get as many attacks as you might otherwise if people feel that they're being treated fairly.
Thanks, Kate. Over to you, Scott.
Yeah, I'll say this is an interesting job where we're campaigning so hard in order to be the the target at the front of the room. But it's something that I look forward to in some sense, because I think that the way you react to criticism helps set the tone, right? And when folks are defensive or bristle or try to avoid criticism, it reduces the trust in the process, right? If you listen to criticism with an open heart, understand where people are coming from. Again, as I said, and Kate echoed, make sure that people feel heard, right? At the end of the day, it's not, people, there's always going to be a winner or a loser in any debate, but people should feel that everyone heard their best argument, that they were able to put their best foot forward. And if they lost at town meeting or things didn't go quite their way, they feel like it wasn't because the process was rigged against them, right? And that's the key. An open and transparent process, I've mentioned transparency before, I think helps build the confidence, even when we don't disagree, that we agree on the process.
All right, well, thank you both, and for sharing a lot of your perspectives on some of these questions. And time to give us your closing statements. So you'll have 2 minutes each, and Scott, you are up first. Great, thanks. I am thrilled to have the opportunity to run for town moderator and serve Brookline. I really believe in the potential of folks in this town, and it's by talking to a wide range of people that I learn new things. I have my perspectives challenged, and in that sense, dovetailing off that last remark, having folks challenge the moderator, I think, is part of can be part of a healthy process where we question our assumptions and all move together, learn something new. There are a bunch of seniors and others in this town who've got fantastic ideas for the town, and what I'm really looking forward to is the ability to work with you all, to listen to you all, and to empower you. And in some sense, as has been mentioned, I've been an advocate in this town, and this is a conscious stepping back for me from that role in order to empower the rest of the town to really
make it possible for you all to do your best work in this town, because I think we work best together. Thank you. My website again, Scott for brookline.org. And I'd love to talk to you more. You can do a one-on-one call there before or after the election. Thanks a lot. Bye.
All right, thanks, Scott. Kate.
Hi. Okay. As I said, the most important thing I have to offer is my experience. I am experienced in conducting meetings. I have legal experience. You were talking about taking abuse. I was an attorney in front of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And believe me, when you are answering their questions, you have to think on your feet. You have to take hostile questions and you have to respond to it respectfully. So I had that experience as well in terms of dealing with challenges. I also, in terms of equity, have had experience working with the ACLU, representing people with AIDS and discrimination cases. So I've had a broad variety of life experience and dealing with issues of fairness that are very important to bring to town meeting, and especially as a moderator, an even-handed moderator who's extremely interested in justice and treating people fairly and with dignity. I think that is what qualifies me for this job, and I hope for your vote.
All right, well, thank you both very much. It's great to hear from each of you, and we're going to move on to the select board portion of our event. So select board candidates should be there and ready to go. This is your moment to sign on, start your video. Unfortunately, one of the 5 candidates for select board, Danelle, was not able to be here. He had a prior conflict. We did want to make sure that everyone got a chance to hear from him. So he did send me a statement. So I'm going to start off by reading that, and then we'll start with our introductory statements from select board candidates. So here is what Danelle sent me. Thank you for hosting this candidates forum. I usually attend every time you host this event. My apologies for not being able to attend this year. I have prior engagements. My name is Danelle O'Neill. I'm 41 years old and a lifelong resident of Brookline. I'm asking for your vote on Tuesday, May 4th for a seat on our select board. I grew up in Brookline with my siblings, JJ O'Neill, who has worked for the Brookline Water Department for over 20 years, and my sister, who has cerebral palsy, lives at 22 High Street and is an active in the BHA and the food pantry. I'm a father of 2 young men, Dante, who's 6 and diagnosed with autism and attends the Heath School, Danelle Jr., who is 16 and a sophomore at BHS and is wicked active in sports. I worked for the Brookline DPW Highway and Sanitation for many years until I resigned. I'm currently a nurse's assistant for Spalding Rehab Hospital in Cambridge. I volunteered and have served on town meeting for over a decade as a town meeting member for Precinct 4, and I'm currently on my 3rd term. I was appointed to the advisory committee and served on 2 subcommittees, public safety and personnel. On Tuesday, May 4th, when elected with your vote, I will bring with me to the select board the golden rule: do unto others as you want done unto you. Balance, peace, equity, justice, empathy, and love. Earl Simmons once said, to live is to suffer, but to survive is to find meaning in the suffering. I will be the only sitting select board member that has gone through the whole process here in Brookline. I grew up here, I worked for the DPW, and I have school-age children. The Brookline Community Aging Network has always been a champion in advocating and providing resources for one of our most vulnerable and quickly growing populations in our town, seniors, from transportation to support services, which our seniors really depend on. I spoke with an elderly woman, Betty, on Saturday, who moved into the Dummer Street apartments. She's so grateful to have BrooklineCAN. She told me that she felt lonely and out of touch with her younger neighbors and appreciates having the ability to fulfill her emotional starvation by just picking up the phone and calling into the center to have someone to speak with. BrooklineCAN is a blessing, and I want to help in any way that I can to keep the blessings flowing, even advocating for another bus driver, so folks like Betty won't feel so isolated and forgotten about moving forward. If you have any questions for me, please reach out and give me a call. My phone number is, you can get your pens ready, 857-243-3602. Thank you for this opportunity. Please vote Tuesday, May 4th for Danelle O'Neill for the select board. My website is danelleo'neill.com. So that was Danelle's statement, and now we are going to hear from the select board candidates who are here with us. Each of you will have 3 minutes to give an opening statement, And then we'll jump into questions. Just to remind everyone, questions were solicited ahead of time. And then I sort of distilled them by topic because there were, lots of the same questions came up. And we are going to hear first from Zoe.
Hi, everyone. I'm glad to be here today. Thank you. My name is Zoe Lynn. I'm running for one of 2 select board seats on the May 4th ballot. For those of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet, a little about me. I currently work as the Assistant Director of Business Strategy and Operations for a biotech in the Boston Metro. Some of you may know of my previous leadership on sustainability and climate for the town of Brookline. My professional training is cross-disciplinary in scope, public administration and policy, the sciences, and leadership in local government. My experience is in leading community-based strategy and change on tough issues in communities and organizations in town government. In Brookline, we have 5 really complex issues facing the town right now. We're part of a regional housing crisis. We're not meeting our affordable housing needs, and that includes for our seniors and many, many others. We are part of a global climate crisis. We continue to confront painful issues around racism, and we have a structural deficit. And that financial challenge is growing each passing year and is limiting our ability to address many challenges, including our work for seniors. And then the fifth item, one in which we'll talk more about today, is that we can do better at caring for and planning for all Brookliners, including seniors, our most vulnerable, and our public servants. That is being inclusive of everyone, and doing this while responding to the COVID pandemic. These challenges require community-focused, strategic, inclusive, and collaborative leadership that works in our town government, and this is the type of leadership I would bring to the board. The select board, which leads the executive branch of our local government, has the responsibility and is uniquely positioned to facilitate and set strategy, policy, and priorities. These are critical leadership actions that can get us back on a path to tackling these challenges. The climate and sustainability strategy I led in 2019 as a town employee that reports up the chain to the select board. This strategy that the select board authorized in a series of actions that I walk them through could be applied to solve our biggest challenges. We have seen this form of leadership work within our town government. We demonstrated that, we tested it, all the way from the community vision and priority setting work, through the integrated planning with staff and the budget process, through the final approvals at town meeting. My leadership skills, my collaborative work with the Senior Center as the Sustainability Program Administrator, my training and facilitating stakeholders with diverse opinions in the public sector, my cross-departmental and cross-committee work for the town, and my understanding of the human and staff side of Town Hall. These skills, this knowledge, this is some of what I would bring to the board. I hope you go to my website and read a little bit more about our 5 big challenges that I've been hearing from Brookliners about, and reach out to me. The website is votezoeforbrookline.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. And next, we're going to hear from Bernard. Oh, you're unmuted, Bernard.
Ongoing problem. Thank you. I'm Bernard Green, and I'm running for re-election to the Brookline Select Board. Let me start off by saying that my campaign website is bernardgreen.com. First, I want to thank the Senior Center for putting on this annual candidates forum that brings important issues facing the town to many senior residents, such as me and you. A little bit about myself. I've lived in Brookline for almost 20 years. I'm a retired lawyer and full-time town official. I'm married. I have 2 grown children who are not yet seniors, but they are getting there. I have a 16-year history of effectively working for you as a town meeting member, advisory committee member, select board member, and during the past 2 years as select board chair. During this time, I've served the town in many capacities, including key committees. And the time that I've invested in this town means I have a really big stake in this town's future. So I'm committed to continuing the role of the select board in providing stable and progressive government that we have here in Brookline. Here are my priorities. Senior issues, of course, are a big priority for the town of Brookline and all of us. We listened to the needs of the Senior Center and the select board and found money to be used to add a social worker and additional janitorial staff to the Senior Center in anticipation that it will be opening its doors to provide services to seniors soon. And we will continue to keep our eyes on the needs of the senior center and seniors in town. But there are other needs the seniors have in addition to those provided by the senior center. We must prioritize our roads and sidewalks to keep them safe and convenient for all residents, especially seniors and individuals with mobility challenges. This includes continuing the pedestrian lighting and sidewalk benches installations that Frank Carroll was so instrumental in bringing to our attention as a need and in helping implement them, and many other projects. The Community Development Block Grant Advisory Committee that I chaired provided federal monies to programs important to seniors also, including $30,000 to the TRIPS transportation program and $150,000 to DPW for pedestrian safety. That is especially important to seniors who are disproportionately victims of pedestrian fatalities in this country, and of course suffer here in Brookline. Community, my support and work to improve the police department has benefits for seniors. I don't want to defund the police or denigrate their work. I recognize that they do many things for seniors. My time's running out, so I'm going to end by saying I prioritize also how we engage in the necessary but difficult and contentious discussions that are required to address the issues we face in our city without the toxicity of our conversation that excludes so many residents from engaging, especially seniors. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. And just for folks who are here, what I told candidates ahead of time is I'd let them finish their sentence. That was a nice and rich one. So thank you so much. And we'll hear from Nancy next. Oh, you're muted, Nancy.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nancy Heller, and I'm running for re-election to the Select Board. I'm very passionate about many of the issues the Select Board deals with, and I want to continue progress on these issues as well as continue to move Brookline forward for the future. Now, as many of you know, I've had a lot of leadership experience in Brookline, 12 years on the school committee, 7 years on advisory, 6 years on the Select Board. But what did I do before I was elected to these positions? Well, before I was elected to my first term on the school committee, I was very, very active in neighborhood, school, and especially accessibility issues. Those accessibility issues are very personal to me. One of my parents was paraplegic, so I have grown up with understanding the difficulties and significance of those issues, especially those issues for our seniors. And I wanted to bring my advocacy to elected office. Now, since my election to the Select Board, I've advocated for seniors, and I'm currently in liaison to the Council on Aging and co-chair of Age Friendly Cities Committee. I'm a very strong supporter of the expansion of the Senior Center. This is not a new passion for me. When I was a member of the school committee, I worked with Agnes Rogers, whom many of you know, and she is a leader in the senior community. We each wanted community-wide support for the building of the Senior Center. And we wanted community-wide support for building our schools, for other issues in town. That's my vision today, to continue to build community support for the challenges that face us, to support each other in our quest to make a very good town even better. We moved here my husband and I moved here in 1973, and we had 3 children here, all of whom went through the public schools, and now 3 of my grandchildren attend. And one of my first acts was to vigorously support the building of the new Lincoln School. I'm currently co-chair of the VHS Expansion Advisory Committee, and pleased to report that the project is nearing completion. That project is very important not only to students, to faculty, to the schools as a whole, parents, but also to the community, because we are building a building over the MBTA tracks. That building is going to be very, very accessible. It's going to have community-wide spaces. And the T platform, which we are also renovating, will have many additional accessibility features. We're also renovating Cypress Field. And through that Cypress Field, we will have a special accessibility path for people of all ages to enjoy. And I have to stop here, but I'll continue later. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And finally, from Miriam.
Great, thank you. Thank you to the BrooklineCAN and Brookline Senior Center for this annual town election forum. This is really important part of Brookline politics. So I also like to take a minute to thank you for showing up because, as we all say, we just love another Zoom meeting, but it's a really important part of the participatory politics of Brookline. So a little bit about myself. I'm a first-generation American. My father fled Nazi Austria and came to this country as a refugee. And this was a big part of my upbringing, the opportunity this country provided my family and me. Because of this history and seeing my father's commitment to public service, that I learned from my parents the importance of working to make the world a better place actively for everyone. My parents taught me to get my hands dirty, get in there and get the work done. For 15 plus years, I did that as I worked in global humanitarian response. Then something really life-changing happened. I became the parent of 2 kids of color, and my whole life experience changed. I admit that I had no idea how deeply embedded structural racism was in this country. I didn't know my own country's history, and I own that, and it profoundly affected me. I retired from medicine, and I went back to school and got a master's in public administration, and I focused my studies on anti-racism work. Now I'm the program director for the Institutional Anti-Racism and Accountability Project. I'm also of the sandwich generation. So I'm also caring for my 87-year-old mother. I tell her I'm the CEO, CFO of the Ruth Ashkenazi Corporation, and she's my only client. I also tell her she can't fire anyone. That's my job. All the hiring and firing, that's me. So here I am, a single mom of 2 middle school kids in the Brookline public school system, working full-time, PTO treasurer, baseball mom, recovering soccer mom. And you want to know why I'm running for select board. Well, I'm running for select board because we need real change in Brookline. Not just any change. We need a government that reflects our values with a clear lens on equity, good idea of what good governance looks like, and inclusivity. When I say justice, I mean nothing we do now is divorced from what we did before. And this justice lens overlays with good governance, which is thoughtful strategic planning with transparency and accountability and inclusivity. We have to get everyone at the table with shared power. What we need for Brookline is a strategic plan with outlined priorities and a budget aligned that reflects our priorities. That means we can create policies at the intersections of issues. For example, complete streets is a transportation, disability, climate mitigation, and senior and youth inclusivity issue. Seniors make up 20% of the Brookline population, and we should be thinking how to support our seniors and help them thrive, especially during this pandemic. We just visited my mom in Oregon after 16 months, and I think it's really important we keep that level of care in mind all the time.
Well, thank you, Miriam, and thank you to all the candidates for introducing yourselves. We're going to rotate this order that we've gone in. So Zoe went first, will now be last. Bernard will be up first. First 2 questions, we're going to focus specifically on some issues of interest to older adults. First one, administering the use of sidewalks in public spaces can be a delicate balance. In recent years, we've seen scooters, and then during COVID, we've seen outdoor dining, which can interfere with a safe and clear passage for people using walkers or wheelchairs or other mobility devices. So how do you see the role of the select board in administering the use of public space and ensuring pedestrian safety? Bernard, you're up first. You're muted, Bernard.
Sorry. Select board, hears from people coming to us with various ideas, various perspectives with respect to the use of our streets and sidewalks. And we have to figure out a way of balancing them, but also giving everyone an opportunity to state their concerns. We hear from bikers, for example, who want to have safe bike lanes, which many times requires us to take over parts of the street that other people want to have for outdoor eating. That's an example of the type of balancing we have to do, which requires us just to listen and to come up with the compromises that may not satisfy everyone, but or what we as a select board have to do in order to get things accomplished. These are very difficult issues, especially during this pandemic, but it just takes a select board that's willing to listen and willing to come up with good solutions, not the perfect solution, but good solutions, and then convince people that these solutions are what it takes for us to live together in a community, considering the concerns and needs of all residents. For example, bikers, but also seniors and people pushing baby strollers, as well as restaurants who need space for outdoor dining. So.
All right, thank you. And over to Nancy.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Bernard has said here. Our public spaces are for everyone, but many times they're not wide enough to accommodate every single use we would like. And I give an example of the Babcock Street renovation project. And I know many bikers are unhappy with the fact that they didn't get protected bike lanes. The problem is we didn't have enough space to accommodate everyone on that street. My principal concern in terms of that street was the number of seniors and people with disabilities living on Babcock Street who don't have parking behind their buildings, and who rely on being able to park and get into their buildings in a convenient manner, because convenience for seniors is a different issue than convenience for people with disabilities. For others who are able-bodied and can walk for a block or two have less issues in that regard. So I think we have to look at the situation in whole and decide how we can best accommodate the needs of everyone without damping down the needs of anyone. And I believe we did that on Babcock Street. So I was proud of that solution. I agree it's not perfect, and I understand why people would want other things, but I do think that we achieved the kind of compromise that we need to.
Thanks, Nancy. And over to Miriam.
Great, thank you. So I think that we do have to consider everybody's needs. I think that's right. But I think at the same time, equity and equality are not the same thing. And so when we try to make sure everyone has access, that means that sometimes we have to lend more of a hand to one group than another. And I like to think of the fence. If you have somebody standing who's short and they're standing on, if you give everyone one box, but the short person still can't see over the fence because they're on one box, they need two boxes. So I think we need to look at these issues from the equity lens, not the equality lens. And we need to say, how do we get everyone so that they can look at the game, right? Actually, the answer is to take away the fence. But as we're building up our structures so that we can take away the fence, we need to think about making access accessible to those who need it more. And so I think the idea of complete streets is excellent. I think when we think about policies, we need to have that lens on everything we do. So I mentioned my mother, she needs a wheelchair to get around. So I'm very, very aware of how difficult it is to get around these streets. My son will be biking to the high school. I used to bike commute. So these are really important personal and community issues that we need to always have at the forefront of our thinking.
Thanks, Miriam, and over to Zoe.
Okay, thank you. So this issue is near and dear to my heart. When I arrived as staff for the town of Brookline, I saw that we had a number of complex stakeholders talking about this exact issue: walkers, bikers, wheelchair users. And I led a community group and staff to set a vision on how we start weighing on these complex issues. We have a select board that historically caters to their constituents And instead, when I arrived as staff, I said, we can't do that anymore. We have got to get constituents working together to solve these issues. And that's what we did. Warrant Article 31 went through a long process, a community-based planning process, and then through staff integration and feedback, and then it passed town meeting overwhelmingly. It addressed how we deal with climate change, equity, and use our streets and start painting a path and a vision forward. That passed in the fall of 2019. I led that issue. You can talk to any of the co-petitioners on that issue, And I think that's how we need to move forward. And that's the role of the select board, is to help bring stakeholders together to actually solve problems, and not just to respond to one constituent, but to bring them together while addressing tough challenges like equity and climate change and all these things. I hope you look at Warrant Article 31. It's a stepping stone, but we have a lot more work to do on this. Oh, thank you.
All right, thank you all. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Zoe. And thank you all. Second question, the senior population growing rapidly nationally, also growing quite a bit here in Brookline. What is your position on funding a strategic plan similar to those done for other town departments to determine the short and long-term needs of the growing senior population here in Brookline? And we will start with Nancy. Nancy, over to you. Position on a long-term strategic plan.
I didn't hear you, Michael. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Could you repeat that question?
Yeah, what's your position on funding a long-term strategic plan for the growing senior population in Brookline?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. We have actually been doing a number of different plans in Brookline. And the planning department is very busy at carrying those out. And we're also wanting to do a long-term plan for the Newberry project. And I'm hoping that that will include a senior component. I think we need to look at the issue of the fact that there are 20% of seniors in Brookline, that we desperately need an expansion of the senior center. And we also need to find a way to provide some senior services in South Brookline, which is not, as you know, as convenient for seniors from South Brookline to drive to North Brookline to take part in the activities there. So we need a plan for those seniors. One idea is to incorporate Newberry into the Newberry property into those plans, but I'm sure that there are other ways we could do it. We are working with Hebrew Senior Life to come up with a scheme for a 40B on Center Street at 108, and to incorporate the expansion of a senior center in that building. And that would be a terrific way of expanding our senior center. And again, that we can plan around with Hebrew Senior Life around that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And to Miriam.
Great, thank you. This is actually one of my campaign issues. I think we need a strategic plan for Brookline. And part of that strategic plan would include seniors. The issue I see is that we have a lot of siloed policies and planning processes where we don't look at these really relevant and important intersections. A strategic plan is a must-have. We have to have a vision for Brookline. We have to see where these intersections happen. When we are, again, I said it in my opening statement, when we're talking about affordable housing and helping seniors have transportation options and finding ways to help them age in their home, that's a large lens that we have to have on all the issues. If we continue to have siloed lenses and we only think about climate mitigation as climate mitigation and senior issues as senior issues and transportation as transportation, we miss huge opportunities to build on what we can do for the town. And so I'm absolutely in favor of a strategic plan for the town of Brookline that has a very specific lens and thinks about the role of improving life for seniors and incorporating our senior population into the fabric of the town of Brookline.
Thank you, Zoe.
Thank you. So I think we need a strategic plan with collaborative strategic action that works within our town government and is delivered and led by our executive board. This is really, really important for us to move forward. This is where we get stuck on all of our issues. It's not that we just need a plan or we just need this. We need the pieces to move together, and the select board is uniquely positioned to lead on this. Uniquely positioned. They did it when I advised them as staff, and we can do this on other issues. It needs to include seniors, but it needs to include all of our demographics so that when we make policies and procedures and take action, we have the community's buy-in and we're ready to move. And it doesn't become a controversy. It needs to be robust community planning at the front end, led by strategic and executive and collaborative action that moves us through our town meeting form of government. This is my area of expertise. I would love to talk about this forever, but I realize you're going to cut us off. So thank you. And I hope we do this after the election.
Thank you, Zoe. Bernard. You were muted, Bernard.
I never learn. It's like this at the select board too. Okay, of course we need a strategic plan, but you know, a plan can be a formula with a bunch of check boxes that we put on the shelf and forget about. We need a strategic plan that it starts out from the standpoint that no one is invisible in this town. Many prior proposals, not plans, but proposals to deal with, for example, our residents who are particularly vulnerable during the COVID period, tend to forget about or forgot about seniors, our most vulnerable population, especially during the COVID era. So we have to stop having seniors as well as other groups in town be invisible when we come up with plans and projects and ideas. So, you know, I think we need strategic planning, and we need to build up the planning department to provide the resources to actually do that. But strategic planning should be more than just, you know, like I said, a formula that includes A, B, and C check boxes. It has to also look at issues such as what is the future going to be for seniors. I mean, seniors are increasingly people who are living to be over 100 years old. What does that mean in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of our programming, and other things? So strategic plan has to be done creatively, not leaving out anyone and not thinking about just the next few years, but thinking into the future and into how the seniors are going to change and their lives are going to change into the future. So.
All right, well, thank you all. So those were a couple questions that we wanted to set aside, as this is, you know, the Brookline Senior Center, BrooklineCAN Forum, topics related to older adults in particular. So moving on to some more general questions. So many in Brookline would like to see more affordable housing in town, and some have proposed that we address affordable housing and general housing crisis by way of significant reforms to zoning. So what zoning reforms, if any, do you support here in Brookline, and how do you favor addressing the housing crisis, affordable housing need? And starting with Miriam.
Great. This is a great question. I think it's an important campaign issue. First and foremost, please vote yes on the Community Preservation Act. Vote yes on 2, which will help give more financial infusion to Brookline to deal with affordable housing and open green space. I think we need a planned 2021 housing production plan with a robust engagement process. And I think we need to think about zoning overlays. You know, one of the things that we talk a lot about is this 10% required for affordable housing, the state requirement. And I actually think we need to reframe how we think about that. We need much more than 10%. 10% is a minimum, and we shouldn't be reaching for 10% so that we gain control again of our zoning decisions. We should reach much higher than that because it's the right thing to do, because to have a lot of mixed affordable housing, low, middle, and income housing in Brookline actually elevates the entire town. So I really think it's important we think very creatively about land trusts, about the CPA, about how we use our power of zoning and building multiple, homes, excuse me, to create and support more affordable housing in Brookline.
Thank you, Zoe.
So our zoning, okay. Our affordable housing, our zoning and land use planning, and our economic development, they're all related, they're connected together, and we need to tackle them together. We need to do, there's a lot of opinions on this. Anybody who's been following the election, it is, as Miriam pointed out, is one of the hot topics. There's a lot of emotions flaring right now on these topics. So here's what we need to do, and this will work. We've seen this work. We need a community-based process that's very, very upfront, includes all stakeholders, and it needs to start with brainstorming and getting all of our options on the table. After we do that, we need to go through neighborhood-based planning, and this needs to be historically sensitive, so that we're protecting and preserving our historic landmarks and valued spaces. It needs to account for other factors like our parks and schools and all that. And it needs to then be integrated into our zoning update, coordinated zoning updates. It needs to be led by the select board, because there's a lot of players that are already working on these issues, and they're working on these issues in silos. It needs to be timely. It needs to take the housing production plan that the select board has already approved and is moving forward, and it needs to integrate that with staff feedback. And it needs to look at our commercial and transit corridors so that we can also deal with our structural deficit. There's a lot of moving parts on this. The select board is uniquely positioned to deal with this issue and do it in an inclusive and collaborative and a Brookline way that brings out the best of what we love about Brookline. That is what I would lead if I was on the select board. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Bernard.
Okay, I guess there are two parts to this question, one about zoning and one about affordable housing. And although they are basically the same issue in many respects, I think they have to be dealt with a little bit separately. You know, a lot of bad things about zoning here in Brookline, as in any suburban community, given historical practices of excluding Black families from suburban communities. Nonetheless, I think we have to deal with zoning reform in a careful, thoughtful way so that we maintain our community as a stable community, as well as at the same time addressing the needs for increasing housing opportunities, particularly affordable housing. But affordable housing is just one piece of it. We can have a community that's comprised of affordable housing opportunities for some, and rich mansions for others. We have to figure out a way of providing affordable housing, middle income housing, and outreach and marketing to particularly Black families with respect to overcoming the history of racial segregation that we suffer from. So, you know, there are a lot of issues here. There's no easy way of saying it or discussing it in a minute and 30 seconds, but you know, that was my contribution. In addition, I think a lot of this will be helped by passage of the CPA on May 4th. So I urge people to vote for that.
Thank you, Bernard. And over to Nancy.
Well, I agree with Miriam and Bernard about the need for the CPA. One of the focuses of the CPA is affordable housing. And we have not adopted it earlier, but if we adopt it now, we're going to be in for state matches in matching funds, and that's going to really help us out, not only in affordable housing, but also in open space, recreation, and preservation. Affordable housing has been something that I've been in strongly favor of for many years, going way back to rent control days. Some of you may remember that. And I think it's really, really important to make sure that our inclusionary zoning bylaw does the best it can for increasing affordable housing in this community. But the other way we can increase it is by working with nonprofits who are willing to provide 100% affordable housing. So for instance, the Two Life Project recently completed. We're also looking, Hebrew Senior Life is looking for ways to fund its 100% affordable units at 108 Center Street. Now, recently I was chair of the Newbury Zoning Committee, which focused on senior housing, not affordable, certainly, but senior housing. And a component of that was money for senior housing. And that was a zoning overlay. So I'm familiar with that issue. And I think it's an important tool in our toolbox to help this project along. And please vote for the CPA on May 4th.
Thank you, Nancy. So moving on, in your opinion, what, if any, is the ideal role for the Brookline Police Department to play in keeping Brookline residents healthy and safe? And Zoe, you are up first.
I think we have to put this question in context. This is one of those sensitive issues that there's a lot going on right now. So in 2020, we saw Gerald Floyd killed. We saw Breonna Taylor was killed. And after those events and during those, shortly after, we saw the world march. And let's just be really clear, the world, people across the US and across the world gave policymakers very, very clear direction. They said, we're sick of racial disparities. We're sick of Black men and Black boys being killed in our streets, and we need to address this. So policing is the space in which they were responding. The public was responding, but racial disparities exist in many, many, many other places across all of our systems. We have to tackle this. We have to do this together. We have to do it committed, and we have to do it with public servants. We have to do it with the community, and we have to do it in a timely fashion. I think all the solutions have not been resolved, and where the community is on this has not all been tackled. I think the reimagining committee did a really good job on responding to that issue and hearing what the public was asking for. I think the reform committee brought the public service into the conversation. I would have liked to see those really move forward together, but I think there's a lot of work left to do in this. The role of police needs to be shifted in line with what we're seeing as a good service in today's world. Yeah.
Thank you, Zoe. Bernard.
Again, I think there are two parts to this question. First of all, I think Zoe appropriately brought up the issue of policing that is on the agenda of every community in town. With respect to the Brookline Police Department, you have to realize that for 30 years, the select board and the community has been changing and reimagining the Brookline Police Department. It is now a very good police department, not perfect, but it's a result of 30 years of work by this town. And unfortunately, not too many people acknowledge and accept that work and the success that we have had in making the Brookline Police Department into what it is today, one of the best in the Commonwealth, if not around the nation. We've done so many things that are now being discussed as necessary for police departments to do. We've been doing it for decades. I think the other question, though, is the role of the Brookline Police Department in terms of social, responding to mental health, substance abuse, and other crises. This is a difficult problem because other agencies in the state and in town have really failed to step up with services to these populations. And as a result, the police are the ones who are on duty 24/7 and 24 hours a day and have to step in and do these things. This is a conversation that we need to have. It needs to be an honest conversation, though. It can't be based on the idea that police are boogeymen who shouldn't be allowed to do anything, or based on fear of policing, especially in the community where we have spent 30 years changing our police department into something we can be proud of.
All right, thank you, Bernard. And over to Nancy.
Thank you. I agree with much of what Bernard said, and I think the important thing to remember is that slashing the police budget is not the answer here. It's not the answer to the problems that are going around, going forward in many other communities. We have not had those problems. Hopefully we never will. And we have to continue to work to make sure we never will. But we need a community engaged police department. Isolating them in their own safety role only, I believe, is a mistake. I believe that integrating them, just as we integrate all of our other parts of our society, is very important. Our police are very, and we've trained them in many different areas. As Bernard said, they are 24/7. We don't have very many calls for instance, on domestic violence. But when we do, we need somebody who's going to go in and be trained to diffuse the situation, to deal with somebody who is violent, or who may be brandishing a gun or a knife or another type of weapon. We need to have someone who can keep people safe. And then we can work with the social service agencies and in our own staff in town to deal with the ongoing problems after the real emergency, if it's not the police. We've encountered this on other occasions. We need to be able to keep people safe in the immediate instance, but then we need to provide services as well to our community from our police.
Thank you, Nancy. And Matt, I think if you could reset the clock for Miriam.
Thank you. This is also a very pressing debate happening right now. You know, police are violence interrupters. They're not violence preventers. And we need to have the right people doing the right job. This means hiring social workers. It means having an office of social service where we have people whose job and training and expertise is addressing mental health issues. This is a prevention issue. So it means we need to move these jobs out of the role of the police department into the hands of people who have been trained to do specifically this work. There are excellent examples of this from across the United States, including the Cahoots program, and we should learn from them, and we should look at how to adopt those programs for Brookline. I think that if we think about of course, I'm a physician, so I think in terms of antibiotics and vaccines. You know, the police are great when something's going down, and that's the antibiotic. We want to help, you know, stop something from happening. When we want to prevent something, we need to think about a vaccine. And what we need to do is think about what systems and services we need in place for the public safety prevention in our community. And so I'm a big fan of the Reimagining Police Task Force recommendations because I really think it has a sharp lens on prevention and public safety.
Okay, thank you all. And I wish we had more time for questions. This is going to be our last one. We're probably going to run about 5 minutes over. I hope that's okay for everybody. So final question, starting with Bernard. What is your perspective on the recent proposal to consolidate many town departments under a new social services department? There you go.
That was a proposal of the task force for reimagining policing. I think it's a misguided proposal. We have a Department of Public Health and Human Services, and it's run by a very capable director who is basically put in the background by this proposal. I think we need to enhance our social service resources, but it's in that department that it makes sense. We have the structure and we have the individuals. We just need to increase the number of social service personnel. That and the diversity office, you know, can provide the services that the idea coming out of the task force is talking about. And it's ironic that those two departments are headed by Black individuals, and they're the ones who are basically reduced in importance by the proposal coming out of the task force. So I don't agree with that proposal. I think we have the structure already in place. We just need to add resources to it, which we are focused on doing and we can do, especially as we come out of this pandemic and are able to get our financial footing or get our financial feet back on solid ground. So.
Thank you, Bernard. Nancy.
I would love to see more social services in the town. I have no problem with that. I have a degree in social work myself. I was a social worker. I understand the importance of it and in terms of providing services to people. I don't think we need to reorganize the town. As Bernard said, we have a Department of Health and Human Services. I don't think we need to put the senior center underneath a new structure with a new boss and new rules for that person, for our own senior center to follow. We have an excellent senior center director. We don't need to do that. We don't need to do it to the Veterans Department either. Bill McGrory is an excellent Veterans Department director. So we can add, as we can find the resources, what we need to do is to add social workers and other helping personnel to our systems that we have set up now, both Health and Human Services and the Diversity and Inclusion and Community Relations departments, in order to provide the services more directly. The other way, I believe, is much more expensive. It involves, again, cutting the police department budget in what I don't think are rational ways. And we need to focus on what it is we're trying to deliver, and do that in an effective way with resources as we can marshal them.
Thank you, Nancy. Miriam.
Great, thank you. I mean, I think clearly I've already stated I'm very much in favor of expanding social services. And to be clear, we're talking about 3% of the police budget. And I think if you can take 3% of that police budget and use it to create a Department of Social Services, I think you're looking much more at prevention, think vaccinations, than you are at treatment. And prevention is always more efficient and effective. That said, I don't think we need to change the current structure of the senior center or the Veterans Office. I do think we can create a Department of Social Services with 24-hour care and response. Again, if we look at other places for the funding. I think if you think about the average single female senior in Brookline that has less than $30,000 a year income, I think we have to think about how our social services works with the senior center to reach those very vulnerable population in Brookline, to expand all the services. So to me, more services is going to be better, more options, more accessibility, more creative problem solving. But I think it's fair to say that we do need more social services, and they should be focused on our seniors and on social workers, hiring more social workers.
Thank you, Miriam. Zoe.
Okay, here we go. So we candidates have been responding to this question a lot through the last few months. I just want to highlight for everyone, facts on the ground here. These are select board committees. These are committees that the select board appointed and created, right? And now we are all being asked to react to whether or not they did their job on this and delivered on this and brought the community along on this. And we're ready to budget this. And I just want to start over. We are where we are on this issue. We need to move forward on dealing with racial equities. It needs to include the police department. It needs to include the other places, but it needs to be led by our executive board, not sending people off into committees and then come back and then we spend months responding to it. The executive board needs to own these items. They need to bring stakeholders along. So by the time we're at this stage, we're actually moving into action, not more planning phases. What's super interesting about this is we have a structural deficit, so we have to deal with that in order to deal with adding staff. We have other issues inside town hall that are very, very serious. We need to deal with that to be able to do an effective reorg. We have all these issues that need executive level leadership, including adding social services, getting the budget right for our seniors, dealing with the climate crisis, all these things. So we need a board that's able to move these people, move community along, move staff along. And so then when we arrive someplace, we can actually move into action and not into planning and discussion. So that's my comment on this, because we have really hacked this one to death. Okay, but thank you for asking.
Absolutely. And so wish we had time for more questions. There's obviously more pressing issues that we could get to if we did, but we don't have time for more questions. So we're going to move into closing statements, 2 minutes each, starting with Nancy.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you to the Senior Center for putting on this forum. It's been a forum that you've had every year, and it's very valuable. Let me say first, I probably should have said this in my opening, that in case you're wondering why I'm wearing these dark glasses, I'm not really trying to emulate Al Capone. What I'm trying to do is not frighten you by having you see my face at the moment, which I suffered a fall a few days ago and it's kind of banged up. So it's not a very pretty sight, and I wanted to save you that. At any rate, I want to let you know that the senior community is a very, very important part of Brookline. 20% of our population is seniors, and they run the gamut from those who are the most needy to those who are very wealthy. But we need to pay attention to the needs of all. And the senior center, I think, is the one way we can do that and bring people together. And I think it's a very, very important service that we provide. One of the other issues that I've been so involved with on the select board is climate, and I hadn't mentioned that before. And I'll just tell you one piece of that has been our vulnerability plan, which we developed after we developed our climate action plan in 2018. And the vulnerability plan stresses our need to protect seniors and other vulnerable populations who are more subject to climate change. They're more subject to things like heat islands, and they frequently live in lower lying areas, and so more subject to floods. So we need to continue to focus on seniors in every way that we can, in every aspect of the town. And I'm certainly absolutely on board with that concept. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Miriam.
Great, thank you. So first, thank you for this great event. I want to honor all the candidates who are running and have a clear commitment to public service. My professional expertise is in building programs, working with scarce resources and building consensus in culturally diverse environments. And that makes me an ideal candidate for this position. I'm an expert at operations and strategic thinking, and at heart, I am a pragmatic optimist. I want to help Brookline be more deliberate, develop a strategy with a sharp lens on justice, good governance, and inclusivity, and then execute that strategy. Climate change is an equity issue. The senior center and affordable housing centers around inclusivity, accountability for policing, and public safety are at the core of good governance. All of these issues overlap and intersect, and we will do right to recognize that, capitalize on it, and create a strategic plan with these overlays in mind. To that end, I believe a budget is a statement of our values and our priorities, and we must have a vision, budget, and strategic plan that align and reflects our values as a community. So why should you vote for me? I have the skills to help Brookline develop and execute a strategic plan with a lens on equity, good governance, and inclusivity. I'm a progressive and will champion and support progressive politics around climate change, affordable housing, support for seniors and youth, schools and education, just to name a few. I am passionate about Brookline, and I'm eager to work diligently for this community to be the best that we can be. I encourage you to check out my website. I posted it in the chat. It has a detailed issues page with my policies that I support, an opportunity to learn more about me, request your mail-in ballot, which I think today has to be in by tomorrow. Get involved if you're so inclined, and information on future events. Vote early today, Thursday, and most importantly, vote May 4th. Thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. Zoe.
Thanks for hosting this. Thanks for running a really good forum. This has been great, well organized, and completely felt that you gave us the right amount of time for each issue. We've been to a lot of these. Here's my closing remarks. We need to leverage Brookline's talent, energy, and commitment to make meaningful progress on our big issues, move us from talking and planning into actual action. I'm one of the candidates that can and will help us get this done, and I'll do it collaboratively. I have demonstrated that I have the knowledge and skills to move us forward together. We have seen this throughout the campaign, and we have seen this as my role as an employee of the town. I'm caring, I'm inclusive, I listen, and I'm proactive. And it's taken me a long time to learn how to talk about myself positively on this campaign, but now that we're at the end, I've figured that out. I can lead on tough issues and in a way that moves us forward together. Very important for leadership, others follow my lead because I build trust and I demonstrate good judgment in hard situations. We need more than advocacy, a good heart and time and a role on the select board. We need someone that can navigate and lead on these issues that we're facing in Brookline town government and bring stakeholders together and bring them into the conversation and then move us forward. My broad and deep understanding of the issues facing our community, from senior issues, and that includes funding of senior issues, to the science and operationalizing COVID and needed policy in local government, racial equity, climate change, mitigation and adaptation, affordable housing planning, and our financial challenges facing us. All these plus others, we need to begin to tackle them, and I know those issues and I know how we can start to do this. My leadership abilities and skills, my professional expertise in the public sector and leading on complex issues, and in facilitating stakeholders with diverse opinions, my cross-departmental work, my cross-committee work for the town, my understanding of the human and staff side, all of this is the knowledge, this is the skills, this is some of what I would bring to the board. I'm asking for one of the 2 votes on May 4th, and I appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. And finally, Bernard.
Thank you. And thank you to the Senior Center. So now you know a little bit about me and how I think. As a resident for almost 20 years, I have a strong commitment to Brookline's future. And that's how I think about this job as well as others. That future must be guided by a select board that will maintain our fiscal stability and our strong progressive ethos. The one thing that I've been focused on actually since my first year on the select board has been policing, and continuing the 30 years or more than 30 years that Brookline has been working to improve our police department so it really serves everyone. And let me just say a few things about how that is relevant to seniors. I won't cut or defund the police budget, whether it's 3% or 17%, as was proposed at town meeting last June. What I'll do is to work to improve it and provide it with the resources it may need to do the things that it does. For seniors, you know, the police do things like protect seniors against domestic abuse or caregivers abuse. They're the first responders to medical or health emergencies. They help fight financial scams and other things that target the elderly. They keep Brookline safe, where seniors have fewer worries about being victims of crime. Those are very important things that the police department does, and we should appreciate that and work to improve it, not defund it. We must be able to engage in that process in the necessary but difficult and contentious discussions that are required to address all of our issues, as I've said before. So I'm a retired lawyer, a full-time town official working for you. I ask for your vote on May 4th in the town election, and I commit to continue to prioritize the concerns and issues of especially seniors, whether those in their 60s to those in their 90s and older. Thank you.
Well, thank you all to all the candidates who've been here today and spoken. Thank you to everyone in attendance. Want to say, you know, it's not easy to run for public office. It takes time. It takes considerable energy. I applaud all of you. Thank you to Matt for keeping time. It's a big job. It's an inglorious job. You did a great one. Thank you so much to Anthais from the Brookline Interactive Group for facilitating this from a technological perspective. Big will be posting this after the fact, so you can watch it online. And as the candidates have mentioned, elections on May 4th, so hope you all vote, and thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.